Blessings. Welcome to Faith in Focus. Today we're going to focus on Job chapter 1, verse 20. However, what I am going to do is I'm going to start reading to you at verse 18 to kind of give you a little bit of context of what is actually happening. I know many of you might be familiar with the book of Job. There's a lot of very interesting aspects to the book of Job. I know Job chapter 1, we're going to start at verse 18, once again with the focus on chapter 1, verses 20. And verse 18 reads, "While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine and at the oldest brother's house." Verse 19, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the four corners of the house, and it collapsed on them, and they are dead, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. And verse 20, the verse that I really want to lean in on here, is at this, Job got up and tore his robe, shaved his head, and fell to the ground in worship. So I've read this many a times. Different things jump out. And so today I just want to kind of talk about, because we've been talking about following the cloud. Last week we talked about the cloud. We talked about the fire. We talked about God taking us places without giving us warning or directions where we're going. We just have to really have that type of faith that we trust him enough that we're going to follow him, that when we say, Lord, order our steps, that we really mean it, and that we're going to follow the GPS, the map that he's provided for us, because he's not like, Siri or Google Maps, where it's just resyncing. He knows exactly where he's taking us and exactly how we need to and what route we need to take in order to be able to handle where he's taking us to. So in this situation, Job has just been alerted that the most valuable things that he has, not the cattle, not the houses, not the land, not the servants, but his kids. All his kids have just died in one mighty gust of wind that came from nowhere. And the very next thing that Job did was he worshiped God. Now, I don't know about you, and I don't know if or how I might respond in that instance. I know how God would want me to respond. I know God would want me to respond like Job. But this is like me just being real talk, and I'm not being super spiritual or anything. I'm just being me, unapologetically me. And if all of this had happened, I don't know if I would have just began to worship God. But see, that's the thing. God wants to get us to a point that no matter what happens in our life, that we trust him enough that at the worst possible time in our lives, we still can get into a position and a posture of worship. That our response to him is to worship him. Not for the blessings, not for all the things, the prayers that he's answered, because he's provided for us when we didn't know we needed to be provided for. That he sheltered us when we didn't know we needed to be sheltered. When he rerouted us to protect us from accidents that we didn't even know we were about to get into. For the houses, the cars, the families, all those things, the blessings that we see, that we enjoy. And we worship him for those. But what about when things don't go our way? What about when we're at our breaking point? What about when we're calling out to God and we don't hear him? It's then like, will we still worship him? What's our position and our posture at that point? And that's what I really got out of this. I got out of this that Job got into this situation not because he did something wrong. Job got into this position simply because God was bragging on him. He said, yo, Satan, have you considered my servant Job? And Satan said, nah, I can't touch you. You know you ain't letting me touch Job. And God said, you know what? Let me remove this hedge from around Job. Because, Job, he has that no matter what happens, he's going to assume the position of that posture of worship, no matter what. Watch. And God removes his hedge. So Job went through all of this, not because he did anything wrong, but simply because God was bragging on him. And my question is like, what would you do if God was bragging on you? Could you handle it? Could you handle God bragging on you? Could you handle going through everything that Job went through simply because God was bragging on you? Would you assume the position and the posture of worship? So in all of that, Job lost everything: his family, his friends, his land, his cattle. His friends talked down on him. Instead of lifting him up, they kept pushing him down further. And Job understood the importance of position and posture so much that Job, in chapter 42, verse 10, it says, after Job had prayed for his friends, the friends that when you start reading from the beginning of Job all the way to chapter 42, the friends that kept saying, we already know you cursed God. We know you did something. You had to do something. Just, confess it. You're not as great as you thought you were. Those friends that really was supposed to be the ones that like his ride or die, they wasn't really his ride or die. When everything went down for him, they were kicking dirt on him. They wasn't pulling him up saying, hey, let us intercede. Let us go to God before you. They kept saying, well, you must have did this. You must have did that. And even in the midst of all that, of all his frustration, of all of him not even hearing from God at some points where it sounded like God went silent. Chapter 42 tells us that Job assumed the position and the posture of prayer, and he interceded for those that hated on him. He interceded for his haters. He interceded for the very people that wished ill on him. And you know what God did? And that's what I want to get to. The position and the posture of worship and the position and the posture of prayer changes things. And when Job got into the position and assumed the posture and prayed and interceded on behalf of those that wished ill on him, the very next thing that it says, after Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him. This is that double for your trouble that everybody talks about. You don't just get double for your trouble. He interceded. He went to the throne. He went to God for people that wished ill for him. He didn't get double for his trouble because he went to God and said, hey, you blessed me with all this and you took it And I ain't curse your name. So God said, okay, I'm going to give it back to you. No. It said God gave him double after he assumed the position and the posture of prayer and began to intercede on behalf of those that kicked dirt on him, those that held his head down under the water while he was gasping, trying to breathe. Those are the very people that he interceded for, and God blessed them. So my question to you is, what is your posture and your position when it comes to your relationship with God? I hope that you have been blessed. I hope that this gave you some new illumination. I hope it gave you some new insight. If nothing else, I hope it makes you want to go back and read it for yourself and allow God to talk to you through his word. Be blessed. Leave us some comments. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what you think. Did you see it the same way? Did you get something else? I'm excited to hear from you. So give us some feedback. Be blessed.